attendee list, Jay.
Yeah.
Rich, you look like you're going to give us a monologue tonight. The black background, a little bit of stage lighting there.
Really artsy.
You know what I figured out though? What I figured out was that like I think it's the way that like if I do this, yeah, it's the way the Zoom works. I guess the way it picks it up, it goes black. Now it'll dim out. See? No.
Jay, you all set?
It was even better last time when Rich was wearing the black turtleneck or whatever it was. All you saw was his head floating in this black background.
Wait a second, if you have the black there, we won't be able to see your cat.
Oh my cat, he's here. He'll be around.
Ready?
Steve, we're all set.
Okay. Good evening. This is a special session of the South Kingstown Planning Board. The date is December 1st. The time is 7 p.m. First item on the agenda is roll call. Pam, will you do the honors, please?
That is me. Yes. Steve DeMasi,
Here.
Joe Murphy,
Yeah.
Maria Mack,
Here,
Paul Jordan,
Here.
Pam Rubinoff. Here. Susan Axelrod.
Here.
And Peter is away, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we will go with the staff. We have Jamie Rabbit,
Present.
Jay Parker,
Here.
Brian Wagner,
Here,
Rich Bourbonnais,
And I'm here.
and special legal counsel.
Present.
I don't know how to say your last name, Peter.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's pronounced Squirrers. So, strangely, it's pronounced somewhat like it's spelled.
All right. Thank you, Pam. All right, we have no items on our consent agenda, so we'll move to our public hearing, which is a preliminary plan, major subdivision comprehensive permit for Village at Curtis Corner. It's a proposed subdivision for one existing parcel and the 24 parcels containing a total of 32 dwelling units located at lot 55 on Curtis Corner Road. Go ahead, Mr. Kenyon. I assume you're representing the applicant.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant, 5A Builders LLC. The applicant owns property at Curtis Corner Road, which is just under 30 acres in size. It's in an R20 zoning district. We're here tonight for the preliminary plan public hearing on a comprehensive permit application for the creation of 24 lots, which would contain 16 single-family dwellings and 8 two-family dwellings. The applicant received master plan approval by a decision dated March 3rd, 2020, which contained 11 conditions of approval. At the master plan hearing, we provided a traffic report and testimony from Paul Bannon of Beta Engineering. We'd agreed to provide the traffic report at master plan, even though it's normally provided at preliminary. We also provided report and testimony from our planning expert, Ed Pimentel, and he testified that the proposal was in conformance with the town's affordable housing plan. Prior to the master plan hearing, we had received a positive recommendation from the Affordable Housing Collaborative. Since the master plan approval, the applicant has applied for the necessary state permits. They've also supplied the town with the necessary information required for the master plan approval. They submitted a letter from Suez Water that the water main extension was approved. They submitted a sewer feasibility study to Public Works Department, which was reviewed and the sewer connection was approved. They submitted a a monitoring agreement with Narragansett Housing Authority, along with a proposed deed restriction. And they also provided a letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing. They've submitted more detailed engineering plans along with the landscaping plan. The applicant is here tonight, along with John Carter, who's the landscape architect, and Eric Prevey, who's the project engineer. I'm going to have Eric briefly go over the existing conditions and then any changes to the plan since master plan review. So I'm not sure if Eric is out there.
I am.
Yes, he is.
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Eric. Go ahead, please.
Jay, do you have those to display, or is that something that I need to put on, or for the actual site plans?
Yeah, I have them. Give me, I just noticed that Alex was here, so I brought him in.
Eric, can you just identify yourself for the record?
Yep. My name is Eric Prevey, P-R-I-V as in Victor E. I'm a registered professional engineer with DePrete Engineering. Offices at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island.
Eric.
Maybe can you go to the aerial first? I'll just kind of make sure everybody knows where we are first. So sheet 2 in the aerial.
Eric, I just gave you control if you want to accept it, and you should be able to do
Yeah, I
it.
don't know if I can change the. Oh, there we go. Hold on a second. Move that over here. I don't know if I'll be able to change these though. All right. Trying to go to the previous. Can you? I'm not sure. Can we get to the aerial page first? Sorry, I apologize. Just want to make sure everyone knows where we are real quick. So the parcel is a 28.1 acre parcel. It's located just north off of Curtis Corner Road. It is located just west of Kingstown Road, otherwise known as Route 108, and just west of the public safety complex at the corner of Curtis Corner and Kingstown Road, just east of Curtis Corner Middle School as well. If we could go to the existing conditions plan. Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. Back a few, please. One more. 2 more, sorry. Perfect. So there's the existing conditions. So as I mentioned, 28 acre parcel. It is zoned R20. It is a wooded site. So you can see right here, there is a wooded swamp complex that's located in the northwestern corner here. So right now I'm looking north is effectively due north for the most part. Curtis Corner is running from an east-west fashion here. There were some frontage parcels that were done by the previous owner, and those are done right here. There's four homes that are located right here in the center of the parcel. The parcel itself has about 7.4 acres of uplands here. So this is the area in the southeast corner, and that's where the development is focused. That area is a wooded site today. There are a few, there are stone walls that are located as well, right through the middle here. You can see a couple stone walls throughout. As I mentioned, that is a wooded swamp wetland. It has a 50-foot perimeter wetland associated with it as well.
That one, you can see your face on. I got a camera.
There are public utilities in the street. All public utilities are in the street. So public water, public sewer, and there is natural gas as well. So if we could go to the overall plan. So I think that's 2 sheets down. Perfect. Thank you very much. So this is the proposed development. As mentioned, it is a 24 lot, 32 unit residential subdivision. It is the same as, effectively the same as what was presented and approved at the master plan stage. So you have the road that comes in directly off of Curtis Corner Road here, goes in a north-south, and then it kind of takes a left towards to the west here. With all of the lots off of it. Since the time, as John Kenyon has mentioned, Attorney Kenyon mentioned, we've gone through and we've done all the detailed engineering that's required to follow up that master plan. So the conceptual approval happened at master plan, and then we need to go through and do all the details for it, the grading, the drainage, the utility work, the roadway design. All those details have since been prepared. And presented both to DEM Freshwater Wetlands Program, as well as to your town entities as well. I know they've been reviewed by Department of Public Services. I see Mr. Bourbonnais is on tonight as well. We've also gone to a technical review committee meeting, and we've ironed out all the details as far as some of the technical elements. Stormwater, to give an overview of the stormwater, we do have, as required, we have a mitigation of all the stormwater from pre-development to post-development conditions, providing the water quality improvements, meeting the DEM's best management practices. We do have a infiltration basin that's located in the kind of the back left portion at the end of the road. So that's able to collect everything from the road and a majority of the back portion here. So there's a ridge that kind of runs naturally through here in an east-west fashion, pretty much in the lot 20 to lot 4 range right here. So all of that goes up to the north, back to the wetland complex today. So we're picking all of that up on the roadway and having that come back, and it comes to a wetland complex, an infiltration basin here. So it's providing the water quality improvements with the sediment forebay, sand filter and such, and then metering out to pre-development levels back into the wetland over here. Then we also have the front watershed, because that's what was today as well. We have to hold existing conditions today. So we do have a sand filter that's located in the front as well. So that is, it's called the sand filter, but just to clarify, it does look like grass. It's a grass surface. It's just sand underneath it to help with the treatment and infiltration and throughout. So we do have a sand filter that's located in the front here today. One note that I wanted to add on here that might not be completely apparent is, I know that there was discussions from one of our abutters here to the east during the master plan, and the concerns were about drainage in the area and obviously concerns on that. So we actually increased the size of this basin larger than what the master plan showed. We had some conceptual sizing for it at master plan, but as we developed into the preliminary plan, we wanted this area to be a little bit larger so that we could really make sure to hold everything on site. We also added a swale along this eastern portion here. So along the backs of these yards, there's a very light swale that just takes the stormwater along the backs of all these units here and brings it right up into this sand filter right here. We wanted to hold the existing conditions today. However, we also wanted to move a little bit of the watershed back. So as I mentioned, there's a ridge existing today that's located right here. But we wanted to be able to push and put more of it back to treat into this larger pond back here and take more away from the front. One of the other items that we were able to do is there's actually an existing catch basin that's located on Curtis Corner Road, and it's right where my cursor is down here. It's an existing catch basin that just goes, there's a roadside swale along this entire area. And so we're actually able to pick that up. Oops, hold on a second. Thank you. So we're actually able to pick up that there's an existing catch basin here that today goes to the roadside swale. We're actually able to pick that up and take this roadside swale, bring it back into our basin here to provide a water quality treatment that it wasn't getting today. So it's actually getting the water quality treatment now and then metered out, and then it actually comes across, and there's now an outlet because this roadside swale didn't have an outlet previously. It was just, it was holding in this area. So we're actually providing an outlet to be able to come in and release for the large storm, beyond the large storm event, to be able to meter back out over here and go to Asa Pond over here. So as mentioned, this is all been submitted to the town staff for review. We believe that we've addressed the conditions that have been discussed. We have received Suez water approval. We have received approval from the Department of Public Services for the sewer tie-in with the sewer feasibility study and downstream carrying capacity analysis. And I think that's kind of the general summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Actually, one other thing I wanted to add was the lots that were in the front. We also added some additional stormwater. Again, we really wanted to make sure that we had a decrease to that front area, understanding the concerns of our butter that had spoken at the last meeting. And so we added dry wells for the homes. You can see, once again, I'll just circle one. So for the front, all the ones that are in the front part of the watershed here, we actually have driveway trenches along the side here to pick up and treat the driveway and infiltrate some extra on site, and then dry wells in the back too. So picking up the roof leaders and put them directly into dry wells for all of the units in the front here that we're contributing and going to the front today. So That's kind of a,
For the benefit of the audience that maybe haven't seen all the drawings, can you just go over the size and the depth of these ponds so they have an idea? What they're
Sure.
looking at?
So the size and the depth of the ponds. So the depths of the ponds are usually around, they're 2 to 3 feet. So they don't, and they're made to meter out. They have to meter out within 36 hours to ensure that they're not holding water. We don't want to be holding them for mosquitoes or having any. So it's all metered out in that amount of time. The one in the front as well. So there's two majority here. So there's one that's located in the back here. And then there's one that's located in the front, the northeast corner here as well. Again, it'll treat it on site. It'll infiltrate it directly back into the groundwater, and then also meter it back out to mimic present day conditions. So as required by both the town and the state, it needs to work for all of the conditions for the 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 25-year, and up to 100-year storm event. So we've mitigated all of those measures.
Okay. Board members, any comments, or staff, any comments?
Mr. Privy, could you explain the difference between the locations and the slopes and dimensions of the ponds since we last saw this at master plan? Also, on sheet 11, could you give us more information relative to the embankment of the pond, specifically the impervious embankment? Hoping very much that that does not mean riprap.
No, it does not. So, yep, no. So thank you for, yep. So the embankment is something we've been working on. It is internal to the core of the pond. So it's anytime we have a pond that builds an embankment, hold on a second. Anytime the pond builds an embankment in what would be above as a fill condition, we build the impervious core now. So it's in this whole downstream side to be able to hold up that berm. It's underneath. It's a silt material, and it effectively makes it impervious underneath. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we're really holding that water and that it's not causing any future blowouts in that area. So that's what the impervious core is for. It's meant to, so on a surface and a visual, it's going to look like the grass siding of just like the rest of the pond. It does not look like riprap. It is not an armament or anything like that. It's grass. It's the core itself is internal to the embankment.
And the lots that have these stone trenches, lots, I believe, 1, 2, 20, 21, 23, and 24. It's understood that that is necessary given the propensity of the site to have flooding and relatively poor drainage. How will those be maintained? And what's sort of the criteria for how effective they will remain?
So there, as part of the homeowners association, I mean, we'll have a homeowners association as well as part of the stormwater program. So both of these ponds have a stormwater program that need to be done also for the infiltration basins and such. So as part of that, that would also be that these units would be as part of the practices as well. It's sort of a belt and suspenders. We did it primarily for the front ones, knowing the watershed that was coming to the front area and the swale that was holding water and knowing our abutters today. So we wanted to add some extra treatment in the front for those units, especially on the dry wells as well, so we can infiltrate it directly on site. It's also a good practice to infiltrate as close to the source as possible. So it would be part of the homeowners documents and ensuring that they get done for compliance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric, looking at the cul-de-sac, it looks to me like it's like 80 feet in radius.
That's the standard South Kingstown cul-de-sac that we ran for to make sure that a fire apparatus could do a full turnaround in that area. So we did not change the size of that.
Okay. So we wouldn't be able to landscape the middle of that without infringing on the turn radius for a fire truck?
You mean like internally for like if you were to
like in the center of it? It's just, I mean, it's a big
Yeah.
impervious space, and
we've seen mixed success with that. The issue that we end up seeing with it is that unlike some of the storm, the level of maintenance that comes to it and such. So it's not impossible. I mean, the calculations are done with the impervious in there to ensure that there's proper treatment. Both treatment of it and for mitigating for it. But yeah, it wasn't our vision to put a center island in it. Just given the plowing and the ease of use of it is really what it kind of came down to. By the time we've seen a lot of times when you put an island in it, that it becomes a bit unsightly sometimes. The actual maintenance and upkeep of any of the plantings that go in it, for one, if you just do standard grass, you could perhaps, but it tends to be that it becomes a little bit not well treated. So
yeah, I mean, it's just when you look at it on the map, it's huge, and maybe Mr. Carter can address that. And again, if we could do something and have a fire truck still make those turns, I mean, it would behoove the neighborhood to maintain it. And if they have an association, that can be part of the plan. My other question was, what's the up against the residences? What's the width of those driveways? I tried to measure them.
Which area are you talking about, Mr. DeMasi?
Well, actually in front of any of the houses, 1, 2, and 3. I mean, you've got reduced curb cuts, like on 1, 2, 3, up to 7. And then you get on the backside, lot 9, 10, 11, you've got a much wider curb cut, almost the same width as a driveway. And
yeah,
like I said, it looks like they're over 20 feet in width, up where they come up against the house.
right. And that's what we did. We actually added a note right on the overall plan and everything, a 20-foot typical max driveway standard. So I believe that's a public work, Department of Public Services for a public road to be able to have.
Yeah. All right. Some of them, I thought some of them, when I measured them, they were close to 24, but all right. So my other question is, say lot 11, for instance, can you reduce that curb cut at the road just to,
to have it go directly into the cul-de-sac? Is that what you are?
No, I mean, just, you've got a 20-foot width straight up to the house, whereas, lots 1, 2, and 3, you've got it, kind of cut back a little where it enters, where it accesses the road.
Sure.
I mean, it just reduces some of the pavement, provides a little more greenery.
Yeah, what we were trying to do was also, there's no reason.
I mean,
that
can you still get, 2 car lengths in there for parking?
Sure. Yes, you can. Yep.
I mean, just a suggestion. There's other board members that may have an opinion on that, but.
Well, and then the opposite is almost true for lot 6, which is a duplex. You have a seemingly very narrow entrance to that. And that's kind of a 6 and 7 are sort of tortured looking lots anyway.
They only have 20 feet of frontage there.
Yeah, and I think it would be useful for, we have a chart in front of us for the benefit of the public, if Mr. Privy could use his cursor and demonstrate along the various lots what the waivers are, what the differences are as you go through the site.
Sure. So specifically to at least the driveways, let me start with that first because there was some comments on that one. This right here around the bend, specifically the 4 through 7 area, there was a discussion during the master plan and into the preliminary plan about making sure that those driveways looked separated coming around the bend. Wanted to make sure, I believe it came from Public Services, talking about making sure that they're separated. And you'll see it, I believe, with the landscape as well, to keep those driveways not blending together. During the master plans, the driveways got, when they were wider, they started blending into one driveway and didn't have a landscape, a large landscape strip between them. So in this, what we did was we kept it for a kind of a one-way traffic to be able to come in here. And that way there's 4 parking spaces. So every duplex has room for 4 parking spaces adjacent to the unit here. And then for every single, so again, the duplex has room for 4 parking spaces in here as well. So it's tapered in this area just to be able to have some separation around the bend here so that they didn't blend into one big area over there. for going. The reductions, so we have 60-foot width for the width of the lots. They're 60 by about 100 on average. So the 6,000 square foot lots is what we were targeting in this area. All of the units have 10-foot side yard setback. So it allows for the 20-foot spacing between units as well. So that's what was proposed as far as at the master plan stage as well, and what we reinforced into the preliminary plan stage as well.
Steve, this is Paul. I have a question.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'm not sure if this is a question for staff or for the engineer, but looking at the perimeter wetland and how along those northern lots, the perimeter wetland comes, right into those backyards. What protects that perimeter? Are there markers that are placed back there so people know that they're not supposed to mow past it?
Yes.
There are.
Yep. There will be permanent markers demarcated back there, stating it as wetland areas. Yep. And
who
we've done that. Oh, go ahead.
Who enforces that?
Both either DEM and I believe actually it's through the town as well. I believe the town has the authority as well.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think we can also, it's one of those things we can put in the homeowners association require that they may make sure that those markers are in place and stay up.
Yeah, I think it's important here just because that wetland backs up to Mitchell Brook, which is impaired. I mean, the stormwater improvements will certainly help, but maintaining that buffer is going to be a big deal here.
Okay. Any other questions from staff or members?
Mr. Chairman, Jamie Rabbit,
Go ahead, Jamie.
if the commission doesn't have any more questions, I'll ask a few, but I'll defer to the board members speaking first.
Pam here. I just wanted to follow up on the question on the driveways. And again, I would defer to the designer as well as to the engineering staff. But so it's interesting because I'm going back to the lot 5, 6, 7 with the very narrow driveway for a duplex. So I'm just wondering there if it makes sense, if I don't know if part of your consideration was for duplexes, and you see that in other areas, the duplex has wider areas and some don't. So I'm just trying to make some sense out of that. If it makes more sense for a duplex to have a wider curb cut and single family residences have a narrower one. So I'm just wondering if there was any thought process in that, because if that's the case, then maybe you move the duplexes to the wider lots or the wider driveway potentials and out of that corner.
Sure. So we were trying to do a blend of the two in this area. So we wanted to make sure that adjacent to the actual home itself, there was room for 4 parking spaces here. So there's enough depth to be able to have 2 stacked by 2, right? To have 4 total parking spaces here. At the same point, we didn't want to extend that width all the way down to the roadway. So that was kind of what we were looking at in that area. We also thought with the duplex, having some room in this area for this one. That was part of the thought process. Is there some flexibility? If there was if it was a greater consideration that you think lot 8 would be a better duplex lot, I'm not sure that it necessarily, I mean, there's more width there. I'm not sure that necessarily matters. I think we were trying to space them out throughout the project. And we were making sure that the lots that were duplexes had room for the 4 parking spaces. So that was our primary considerations with it, without adding additional pavement.
Great. I was just trying to understand. Thank you.
I also had a question that I think I asked at master plan, and I'm not certain that we have any numbers on this, the amount of fill.
I did provide that actually to Mr. Parker, I literally yesterday, but because I saw it in the staff notes afterwards saying that was an outstanding item. But yeah, that was, I did provide that. It ended up being, I hold on a second, I don't have that directly on me, but it was a bit of a fill, mainly because we were, hold on a second, I'll grab it as well. It was a bit of a fill because thank you, perfect. There was a fill given that we were trying to ramp up as quick as possible to get some of the watershed to the larger in the back without changing too much. We don't want to change subcatchments at all, but so the roadway, most of the fill condition comes at the beginning. However, so I did it as a two-part in this. So there's a total cut of 5,500 yards on site between all the different movements of earth and things and ponds and such. The fill was 14.5, so that's a net of fill of 9,000 that would be on there. That sounds like a big number, no doubt. But when you look at what I put down below, right below that is for the house basements as well. So that was just taking, sorry, the first part was just taking the surface. So your finished grade surface versus your existing surface. And then we subtracted out for the basement. So there's 24 actual physical buildings with their 30 by 40 footprints. And I assumed a 6-foot depth, not even though it's a typical 7.5 foot difference between your floors, only about 6 feet of the would be below grade, because typically you have a exposed foundation of about 1.5 feet or so. So that assumes for 6,400 yards that you can take when you're digging out these basements for the home. So you can use that on site as well. And then the road sub-base materials, we know there's select fills that are needed out there as well. There's certain materials that need to be special materials, including some of the processed gravel, the asphalt. We know that we have the asphalt for the 4 inches worth of asphalt for the roadway, the driveways. So that by the time we ended up at the end for select materials that we know we need to import no matter what, just to be able to bring in to create the site, it ends up with about 8,900 of subtraction. So it becomes effectively a balanced site. There's a slight fill that might need to import a little material, but it becomes effectively a balanced site on as well.
Yeah. Excuse me. Can you guys hear me?
Is that Alex? It sounds like Alex.
Oh.
Sorry, I want to.
Alex, can you identify yourself, please?
Alex Petrucci, the owner. I want to apologize. My camera's not working. I had the road builder, actually 2 road builders, look at this, and they agreed with the numbers that the pre came up with as far as the cuts and fills. So they're pretty close on the accuracy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, could I ask some questions?
Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, this is Susan. I have a couple of questions to ask. It sounds like there'll be a fair amount of grading at this site. Will some of the trees be preserved?
No.
Or will the site be completely cut?
The area within the limit of disturbance we would envision would probably need to be cut, and we're enhancing with the landscape plan. John Carter is also on this call, and I think he'll be speaking to it shortly. But given the placements of the houses respective of each other, I think it would be difficult to say that we'd be able to save the trees between the units with only, with the spacing and such. So there may be areas where we can selectively look at it. And I know that typically what we do as usual for any pre-construction is we stake out or we flag in the field the limits of disturbance, and then we walk it with the town staff. And then we look at any of the trees that might be like right on the edge of where that limit of disturbance will be. And if there's any ones where we can move it 5-10 feet, depending if we're safe, there's a couple prominent trees in that area, we may tweak the limit of disturbance. But I would say internal to the site, like where lots 1, 2, 3, 4, for instance, I would envision that those would be, probably those would be cleared in that area.
Or even behind, say, the 16, 17, 20, 21, like there's sort of a
Yeah, that may. We've
Okay.
it's not our benefit to cut trees. It costs money to cut trees for us as well. I know that sounds funny to say, but
Right.
every tree we cut costs money as well. And it's not our benefit to cut the trees either. So
Okay.
I think we would look at wherever we can.
Okay. So I have,
Any
Sorry.
trees in the backyards of the properties, like behind number 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, on the other side of that dotted line, obviously, they will never be touched. Anything
Right.
behind building 6 won't be touched. Then we come down along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those houses, if you look at that very closely, that edge of that property, if anything that's past that building line, if I could save any big trees along there, I always do, because like Eric says, every time I cut one of them big trees, number one, you get rid of them. Number two, they're expensive to remove. So I try to keep as many as I can. And any.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm glad to hear that. So behind those first houses, 1 and 2, will anything be put here as a buffer to that neighboring property? And then I would say also along the edge of lot 24 or 15?
We're gonna, John Carter will be presenting the landscape plan.
Okay,
So we'd probably let him address those questions.
okay. So I have another question which might need to wait also. Right now, there are some stone walls on the site. Are you planning to move those elsewhere on the site?
We are.
What I usually do is I pick up the stone if I can. I try to use them as at the entrance, like I did at Michaela Court. If you notice that entrance at Michaela Court, all them stones that you see at the entrance of Michaela Court, I collected off the property. I try to use as much as I can of the natural stones in the property. Sometimes I use some of it for some of the landscaping. Of course, that's all decided by the market in the customer buying a property. Sometimes they like some stones put in the yard. Some of them don't want them at all. So I try to use them. And I actually, when I do take them down, I store them in a pile so that I can use them. I do not just destroy and bulldoze them away.
Okay. Okay, and I have one last question. Sorry. You had said you had received some of your DEM permitting. Is there, you'll have to help me out because I'm new to the planning board. Is there a specific permit that you need when you're working with a natural heritage area?
Yes, so as part of the wetlands program, so this as part of the freshwater wetlands program, it gets a review by both the engineer and the biologist. And we had, because this is a comprehensive permit, we're allowed to come in for preliminary plan with the town at the same time concurrent with the state permits. I can say, however, though, we did receive comments from DEM back in October. We replied to them, and I actually got a chance to talk to the engineer today. Both the engineer and the biologist have signed off on the review of it and will be issuing the permit. So we expect to get the freshwater wetlands permit in the next week.
Thank you.
So yeah, so it does. It gets reviewed by both an engineer and a biologist, and at the same time, they do look at the features on the site. They confirm there are, the extents of the wetland aren't, and that they agree with the edge of ours. That's not further any closer or any further. So they view those, and as part of that as well, we do field work as well. We stake out, we flag that limited disturbance in the field, so that when the biologist can go out and verify and look at the setback distances from the wetland feature versus where the limited disturbance is. So there's some field work that goes with it too, so they can go out and look and see where everything's located.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Maria, you just muted yourself.
Yeah, I just had one more question at this point in time. Did we receive any kind of opinion from the Conservation Commission? I remember early on at master plan, they said they did not have sufficient information. Is there anything from them?
We haven't received anything differently from the Conservation Commission. That we have not. No,
Jay, do you
I
know?
believe.
Jay, have they seen it yet?
I believe they typically commented at the master plan stage and not the prelim, but
At the master plan, they said they didn't have enough information to
Right.
comment on, so we'll have to check with staff to see if they've been presented with this plan.
Mr. Chair, this is Jay Parker. Eric is correct. The Conservation Commission typically sees these applications at conceptual master plan and not at preliminary.
Okay.
Eric, are you going to cover the affordable housing, or is that going to be a little later in the presentation by John Kenyon or someone else?
Was there something specifically, Mr. Murphy? Maybe.
Just discussion on how they're integrated, which ones are into single family, which ones are into duplexes. I'm sure you know the requirements of the comprehensive permit, that they have to be compatible in
Yep.
scale and architectural, and we just need discussion to show that is actually being met. So where they're located, how they're integrated, the size of the units, and how they're split up between single family and duplexes.
Joe, I
Probably
believe
most of that.
that every duplex, one side of the duplex is an affordable.
On every single one?
Yeah.
Is that how they're meeting all the affordables?
So one market and one market and one affordable, yes. Alex, maybe you want to, Alex, are you still available? Maybe you want to speak to how that business model works? I think it's important to remind.
And so
Okay.
none of the affordables are in the single family units.
Correct.
Yeah, what happened, if you remember correctly from the beginning, I introduced this project as a affordable market rate affordables. To be able to, the idea of the duplex with the affordable attached was so that, number one, the young couple can buy it, they can live there, they can rent the half out at the affordable rate. They can afford to pay their mortgage, help pay their mortgage, but the property is still an affordable market rate, so that the restriction only falls on the half of the duplex. The reason for that is it's a lot easier to market, easier for the people, the young couples to buy, or even the older couples to buy, and still build up equity in the property. And the town gets the rentals affordables that the town desperately needed. So that's why I came up with this whole program. And that's why we did the 8 duplexes affordable. And if you look at the conceptual drawings that I gave you, you'll see that the whole idea is to try to make the duplexes similar to the single families. So everything blends together with country porches and nice little peaks and decorative garage doors and stuff like that to make the thing look like a little village. And that was my whole idea.
So how many square feet is the rental unit that's affordable, deed restricted affordable, and how many bedrooms versus the single family houses, the square footage of that and the number of bedrooms in that?
Say again, I'm sorry, I missed that. How big is the single family home?
How big is the single family home square footage and the number of bedrooms?
Single family homes will probably average between 14 and 1,600 square feet.
And how many bedrooms?
2 and 3.
All right, so about 3 bedrooms, up to 1,600 square feet. The rental unit, what's the square footage of just the one unit, not the whole duplex, just the one unit, and how many bedrooms are in that?
They're approximately, I would say 884 in the 884 to 900 per side, roughly.
And 2 bedrooms?
2 bedrooms, right.
Okay, well,
But again, without a 2-bedroom restriction, because it's on sewers and we're not restricted for septic systems. So a young couple comes along and wants a 3-bedroom duplex on both sides. If I got the room and the square footage, I mean, the area of the lot, on some of the lots, that I could probably build a little bigger duplex for them. But they're going to be.
Just expressing my concerns, and the other board members could express their own, but what the town needs is affordable housing of all types. It needs rental units, it needs ownership, it needs 1-bedroom rentals, it needs 2-bedroom rentals, it needs 3-bedroom rentals, it needs 2-bedroom houses, ownership, 3-bedroom houses. And typically, when we do a comprehensive permit or we do inclusionary zoning, we want the affordable rates to look like the market rate. That way we get diversity in the affordable rates. And if we just get one type of affordable, which is a rental 2-bedroom, we're never going to meet those other requirements. So my interest always is to see that the affordable rates are compatible in size and nature and architectural as the market rates. So that's just, I'm just expressing my opinion there.
Well, you got to remember, the whole idea of the subdivision from the beginning was I realized that there was no properties in this town because originally I could have put 16 houses in here, $600,000 homes, big houses. I said to Eric and the pre-engineer, and I got to come up with something so that some of these young couples, starter homes, can get in. That's where this whole thing started from. These houses are very small for the area, and they're probably going to be priced at the lower rate of the area. The whole idea is to be able to if you have a children that want a house, a living, they want somewhere to live in town. We're driving all the children out of town. I live in Narragansett. My daughter can't live in Narragansett. She just can't afford to buy anything down here. So that's what where I come up with this idea.
No, I think the idea is a good one, and I applaud the idea of affordable housing, not just market rate, deed restricted, not just deed restricted affordable housing, but affordable housing in general. So I definitely applaud that. I have 4 children. I would love to see my children end up living in South Kingstown. So I certainly understand that. But when we look at the deed restricted and we're looking at maybe making opportunities to families that have much lower income, my interest is to see that to be compatible with the market rate, and that way we get the diversity that the town needs. So that's my expression. But I do very much applaud your affordable housing, even those that are not deed restricted.
Well, you got to understand that the apartment side of the affordable is restricted by the affordable law. So I mean, a couple buys a duplex house, they can't charge $3,000 for the apartment. They have to live by the rental affordable amount. And I don't know the numbers exactly, but I think the 2-bedroom is, let's say, 900, or the 2 bedrooms, 1,200. It's in that ballpark. They can't charge 1,500, 1,800. So that's where that comes from, to be able to get some of those people that can't afford a regular duplex, half of a regular duplex. They can afford the half of a duplex that has the affordable restriction on it. That was where I come up with that side of it. But it also makes it, which you got to understand, like yourself, you got 4 children. Which I ran into a lot. This is where it all came from. And I'm just trying to educate everybody, because I've been involved with this affordable stuff for a while. What I found was that the young couple comes down and they love the house, or the older couple comes down, or the middle-aged couple comes down. And when I tell them what the rules and regulations are on an affordable house, which the house, everything's under the affordable, that when the young couple shows up, they love the house, the mom and dad show up and say, well, that's beautiful. You can buy this house for $300,000 and live here. And then when you have a few kids, the house gets too small for you, you can sell it and make a profit. And I got to look at them in the face and say, I'm sorry, you're not going to make a profit. These are affordable. So the parents turn around and say, you mean to tell me they're going to maintain this house, take care of it, cut the grass, take care of it, fix the windows, fix the doors, live here for 5 or 6 years, and they're not going to make any money? Honey, you're not buying this house. You're going to go find one that doesn't have a restriction on it. So that's why I came up with the duplex with the affordable on the half, so that the house itself and the land itself is a market rated property. So they can sell it later on in life at a higher price as the price goes up. But the affordable apartment is protected by the law to keep that rate down. That's why it works perfectly for the people that can't afford a place to live, and the people that want to buy a piece of property, invest some money, but want to make money on their money can still do it. So you're getting both sides of it. And the third The third part of it is it gives the town of South Kingston some more rental affordables.
Okay. Paul, did you have your hand up?
Yes, so I'm just, I agree with Joe that I'd very much like to see single family included in the affordable. I also understand that there are lots of marketing issues, so I'm curious as to whether or not this does meet the requirement, the letter of the law, so to speak, in the town standards for affordable housing, or
I
if,
think Jamie was going to address that.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And could I just add quickly, I agree with what Joe said. The applicant, this board did not write the affordable housing law. And they're getting the benefit of double the amount of ordinary density that would be allowed. And I think it needs to be equitable and it shouldn't be of a lesser standard.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Jamie.
Chairman, if there aren't any more commission,
Now, I'll just mention that
Board
those in
members?
the audience, after staff gets done speaking, we will take questions from the attendees. Go ahead, Jamie.
yep, Mr. Chairman, tonight I just have 5 kind of primary topics. I'll apologize initially because I wasn't involved in the TRC process early on, since I've only been on board in September. But I have a few comments, one primarily from the testimony that has taken place this evening. Again, Jamie Rabbit, Planning Director for the town of South Kingston. Item number 1 deals with something that did come out of the TRC and also out of the initial phase of the permitting process, was a potential future connection to Route 108. I know South Kingston's Police Department opposed, or I should say opposed, wasn't in favor of any access through their property. But I think any development of this property should take into account time and time values, that values for people change, and that this development would be done in a short-sighted manner if there wasn't some provision for future access either to the town's property to the northeast, or at least along the frontage if there were ever to be a sidewalk program on Curtis Road to the east connecting to 108. That could potentially easily be accommodated just with a tweak to grading along Curtis Corner Road through lot number 57 on Curtis Corner, and then along the frontage of Curtis to the intersection of 108. The second aspect, commission members looked at a lot of the driveway layouts and the proposed building layouts. I think there's an opportunity specifically on lots 5 and 6 to potentially share the driveways to either 5 and 6 as a shared apron and then split off internal to that. You could do that with lots 7 and 6 or 5 and 6. There could be a combination to eliminate one additional curb cut there. And if Jay, you can just point to that corner on 5 and 6. I can understand Mr. Schock's concern that you have 3 driveways with maybe 5 feet apart from each other. Those will be difficult to plow and to stock snow in a winter event. We potentially have the ability to combine 5 and 6 and then have them break off internal to the property. We all know this is a fairly confined site with regards to the proposed density. I'll point my attention to lots fronting 108, specifically lots 23 and 24. The only way for a vehicle exiting those properties will be to actually back out onto Curtis Corner Road, which is not in the best interest of either the community or the future residents of those lots. There is an opportunity to reconfigure lots 22, 23, 24, and 21, and then have the driveways for 23 and 24 coming in off of the proposed cul-de-sac. So in essence, there would be no curb cuts on Curtis Road other than the road. Again, a slight reconfiguration of lots, those 4 lots in the southwest corner of this development. again, you have opportunities for that. Also draw your attention to, there's really no excess parking available to any of these units except on-street parking. So if you have a single-family unit, we'll pick lot 1, there's potential to park 2 cars in that driveway. If they had a guest, the only availability for parking would be in the road on the cul-de-sac. That becomes an issue to me on lots 23 and 24. You have the ability to park 2 cars in the driveway. If you have a guest, where do they park? The answer can't be the cul-de-sac, because then you're asking them to walk on Curtis Road to access those properties. Again, if the commission would like to see it, I do have a couple schematics showing the potential rearrangement of those lots. Again, it will take some work on the engineering side, and I'm sure Alex Ricciucci may have an item or two with regards to feedback with that rearrangement. The 4th item and 5th item that I have tonight deals with the affordability aspect of this under the comp permit. Primarily on the comp permit, all the affordable units are supposed to be integrated into the development. In essence, they're not supposed to be side by side or across the street. If you were to look at the layout of this, and with the testimony tonight, that all the affordable units are the duplexes and they're side by side. So you're isolating the affordability to clusters within the development, and they're clearly, according to Rhode Island law and our own regulations, supposed to be integrated throughout the entire residential development. The 5th part of that, my 5 points tonight, is with regards to mix of units. And I think a number of board members weighed in on this evening, that there is no ability for anyone to purchase an affordable unit in this development. In fact, the only affordability that is being proposed is a rental unit or within a fee simple development purchase. And I think that may be a little contrary to the requirements contained in the regulations. It also means that someone who is supposed to be purchasing an affordable unit or have affordable property actually has to have the finances to buy a duplex, which actually means they are perhaps above the median income, because if a single family home's in the $300,000 range, I'm sure a duplex may be in the $500,000 range, which means a substantial down payment, substantial mortgage, beyond the means of someone being able to afford 80% of the median income, spending 30% of their income on housing costs. So I think that needs further insight and perhaps opinion from legal counsel with regards to the complexity of the proposal of the affordability in order to meet the town's requirements under the comp permit. So those are my primary 5 items tonight. Again, I'm coming in after the permitting process has started with some prelim and the TRC review of this. So again, those are my 5 items tonight. I don't know if the chairman or any board members have any specific questions.
Jamie, can we quickly just see
And on anything.
the schematics you drew out for the access on those frontal lots?
Jay, do you have that available? The first one that Mr. Parker is showing actually is taking 5 and turning it into 4, where those 2 lots on the left would in essence be rear lots coming off of the proposed cul-de-sac, utilizing perhaps a shared driveway and then branching off to the northwest and north-south. Jay, if you go 1 slide down, this in essence is a little tighter, but again, it's a reconfiguration of those 5, trying to potentially save all 5 of them. And again, this was just something very, very quickly done by our office to look at providing access off the cul-de-sac. So if there is a turning move that requires a car to back onto a road, It's backing onto a cul-de-sac with a much lower ADT than a main road like Curtis Corner Road.
Okay. We can forward those to Eric Prevey, and he can take a look at those and maybe answer us at the next
Absolutely,
meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, Alex Petrucci here.
Yes, Alex.
This was a master plan which was approved. I have no intention of changing these, all that of the new planning commission, Mr. Abbott. He was not here on the master plan. This master plan was approved. I can understand a couple of his points, which makes very good point, like for instance, the two shared driveway like they did on the other two houses on the same street. And I can understand what he meant by you having a problem coming off out of those two lots. That could be taken care of very nicely by putting a turnaround on the property so the cars could come out, back out, and then drive out onto the main road. As far as shared driveways, I am not in any favor to make any of these lots shared driveways if possible. Because number one, all it causes is problems between families. When you put a shared driveway, it's always, you didn't cut the grass, you didn't plow the driveway. You end up making people hate each other.
Well, Alex, he's provided a sketch for us to look at, because again, he did address a problem that you can't back out on the Curtis Corner Road.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so I'll fix
You can
that.
resolve that and show the engineering staff and the board that you can alleviate that issue, then maybe it's not going to be a problem, but obviously it's something that's got to be addressed.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, I share similar concerns to shared driveways, but the applicant has already proposed to share the driveways for lot number 24 and 25. So I assumed he didn't have a concern about shared driveways since his
25.
go to shared.
25, 24, 25.
Yeah.
23, 24.
23 and 24.
24 and 25, we shared the driveway because we tried to eliminate one driveway onto the main road. That's why that has a shared driveway, which was approved was on the master plan. What I said is that if you had a concern about the cars backing out, I can understand that. We can do a turnaround on the property. I could slide lot 24 back. I could slide that house back 30 feet if I had to. I mean, there's a lot of other ways to do that than disturb this whole setup. And in regards to your remark about the affordable duplexes, this was discussed in the beginning, all about how we were going to be able to get affordable rentals in South Kingston, so that they would short affordable rentals. So when we came up with this plan, this was discussed way even before the master plan was put together. Then we came in with this plan. And it was approved by the town. And then let's get back to the duplexes. You said integrated duplexes mixed up in the homes. Well, you've got lot 6, 5, 4 duplexes. Then you switch over to lot 9 and 10, you got a couple of duplexes. There's no big deal. I could take 9, switch it with 8. That's not going to make much of a difference. Then you come over on lot 14. There's a duplex all by itself. It's by itself. So they are mixed up. The only place you really got 3 of them together is 6, 4, 5, and 6. You've got 10 and 9 together, and then you've got 20 and 21 together. I could slide them around because they're basically the same size footprint. That's not gonna make much of a difference. I could move, I was thinking about putting it out on 24, but I didn't want to put that much driveway out on 24, so I figured I'd slide them into the subdivision. And I'm gonna try to make the houses look alike. I mean, if you looked at the elevations, to try to make them all look similar.
You know, I remember discussion about the 80% LMI, Alex, and that was part of the reasoning for having these small lots and less infrastructure, because you said to meet the 80% affordable, you had to have smaller lots and less costs for the buildings. But I can't say as I specifically remember that they were all going to be part of a duplex, or, you know, I thought it was in general to build a home at 80%, you needed reduced lots to reduce the cost of building those homes. But, you know, we may have to go back and look
Mr.
at the
Chair,
record on that. But
The problem with the single family homes, as I told you in the first meeting, and if you go back to your notes and you'll find it, that I told you from the beginning that affordable housing, single family affordable housing was very difficult to finance, was difficult to sell, was a proven fact on Michaela Court, proven fact on Michaela Court and on Sophia Court. Every one of those was very, very, very difficult. Actually, Michaela Court, I ended up giving the lots away to another builder that's building them for his kids. They have no value. They don't sell. They were on the market from the day we started the subdivision to the end. And they would not sell. And the ones that did sell until the parents showed up and said, "You're not buying these because of the restrictions." That's why we decided the only way we can make it so that the banks will finance them is if the property itself does not restrict it. The apartment was. There was 3 reasons. One was for the town to get apartment affordable. 2, to make it much easier to sell them. That was the second one. And the third one was to be able to build them small enough so that a young couple can buy it. To answer your planner's remark, if you buy a home that costs $400,000, let's say the bottom of the market's 400 grand. Just use that as a number. Let's say the duplex is 475. Which one of those houses would be cheaper per month to own? The duplex, because the duplex got some income. And that's why we did this. We're not going to be building $800,000 houses. We're not building the 16 houses that would have been $500,000 or $600,000 that we originally laid out. That's where this whole idea came from. The whole idea came from young people cannot live in South Kingston because the pricing homes have gone through the roof. This subdivision, because it's on sewers, because it's close to the town, the land was reasonable. The price to buy the land was reasonable. The whole thing is working because when we're done, we're not into lots for 150, 180,000 a piece, so that we can afford to do this. That's where this whole idea came from. You know, and they don't have to maintain a well. They don't have to maintain a septic system. I mean, this is a perfect spot for this type of subdivision. That's why we did this.
okay, thank you, Alex. Maria,
You're welcome.
you're muted. There you go.
I think that, thank you, Jamie, for your comments. I think they were spot on. I think it's worth noting that both for staff and for new planning board members in particular, if they were not here at master plan, that does not prevent them from being part of the conversation and having the authority to vote. All of the material from master plan is available, and probably recordings as well. And I just want to add that if the Conservation Commission did not have sufficient information to comment on at master plan, they should be given the opportunity to comment at this preliminary stage. It's always worthwhile to get extra information.
Okay. Jay, we did have one of the abutters had a hand raised for a while now, so Sandra Cox. We can bring her in.
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Sandra, can you unmute yourself?
Lower left hand, there you go.
Hi, and thank you. I am at 57 Curtis Corner, and I know that Jamie mentioned something about the property there. My two questions are, number one, if there's 2 to 3 feet of water, will there be some type of fencing? I know Mr. Petrucci had mentioned something to me about that a few months ago. And number two, if there's even 6 inches of water, I do worry about mosquitoes and what will be expected for upkeep to help with that. My granddaughter does walk to my home, and just for other children in the neighborhood, I'd like to know. Thank you.
If you remember correctly, hon, when I talked to you, I told you that by us putting a pipe across the road, that'll eliminate some of the water that's already being collected there during a storm. The other thing I also said that I would put a fence along that edge of that property, which is that pond, going up along that edge right there along that red spot. I'd run a fence up there, and if it would make you even happier, I could run that fence up right past your property to that number 60. If you run that little red dot up, right about up there and block that whole side for you, if that would make you happier.
I believe that's on the landscape plan too. I may be incorrect, but I believe that's on the landscape plan, that fence around the pond area.
Did we add that already?
Eric, can you go over again how those ponds will drain the time?
Well, can I just say, are you expecting to take down, there's a fairly high stone wall that abuts my whole property on the west side. So I'm more concerned about that the house and our driveway goes right up against Curtis Corner Road. So I'm more concerned about it, the fencing going across the street area and where other students walk. And unless you're not going to take down my stone wall.
No, the common
No,
stone
not at
wall.
all.
No.
So I'm not worried about a fencing against any of that west side of my property. I'm more worried about someone going out to get the mail and then seeing water and running across to play with it before I can catch them. And any other walkers, there is a sidewalk all across that front area.
Yeah, there is today it goes off of the side of the road there is a sidewalk, and then it does fall off to kind of a roadside swale today. We're looking to maintain that, keep it the same as it is today. We're not changing any of that. We're not changing the grades relative to that. It's the same as what it'll be today. We are, however, going to be able to pick it up now and bring it into our pond to treat it first before we send it, before, it gets infiltrated. So we're trying to maintain exact conditions as what's out there today, and not change any of that.
But can you just go over how long you expect water to stand in those? She's concerned about standing water.
Sure. So the requirement, we do soil testing in it, first of all. So as part of the stormwater design process and as part of required by DEM, we do testing through soil evaluations and take a look at what the receiving soils are. They give them highly conservative infiltration rates, but we use them, and that's what is used for infiltrating of the pond. It needs to be able to infiltrate within 36 hours. That's the requirement. So,
Eric, I got a question for you.
Sure, Alex.
The pipe going across the road, okay, that doesn't exist today.
Correct.
You get a bad storm, the water that's on that road dumps onto my edge of my land today, correct?
It does through, yep, through an untreated catch basin. Yep.
If the pipe was on that, in there now, the water would not collect if you had a flood. In other words, it started filling up, it would run through the pipe and all across the road, correct?
It's going to pull up that entire roadside swale, yes, until.
So that means that by adding a pipe, you would decrease any chance of ever having a flood in that area, even if it overtook the pond and everything else, it would run across the pipe and into the wetlands.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
On a large storm event. Yep. Most of it is kept on site and treated on site and metered out to pre-development conditions. But yeah, if it was a large storm
I just
event.
wanted to understand that what we're doing will make it better than it is today.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank you.
believe we had somebody else with their hand raised. Randy? Randy, if you can unmute yourself.
I'm muted. Hi there.
There you go.
Yeah, are we good?
Yes, you're
it's-
good. You just state your name and your address.
Yeah, it's Gail Meisner, 202 Curtis Corner. And this is fascinating. This is the first that we've looked at this as closely, and I want to sort of double, triple back up what Joseph Murphy said about the affordability. Feels to me as a citizen, if we're talking about affordability, that we're looking for people who can purchase and not rent. But my biggest concern is about Asa Pond and what a development of this density will do, in terms of extra traffic, in terms of lawn runoff. And so I'm wondering if your communications with DEM specifically address the impact of Asa Pond, or whether that's a Conservation Commission.
Nope. This Eric Prevey again. Yes, that is part of the application to DEM. So it's all of the wetlands, not just the on-site wetlands, but also the pipe that we had mentioned in the wetland across the street. So yes, that is all part of the DEM wetlands application that is reviewed by the biologist and the engineer. So as I mentioned, there is an existing catch basin that's untreated today. We're pulling it into our pond and treating it and providing the water quality treatment that it is not currently getting today before releasing it. So.
And is that, what about the overflow situation you were mentioning?
That's if it were to ever overflow beyond 100-year storm event, that's what typically stormwater is designed for. That's the frequency of the largest storm that you would see within 100-year frequency. So typically that's not what things are designed to. So that pond is designed up to the 100-year storm to infiltrate and treat it and meter it back out to pre-development conditions than today and provide the water quality treatment. So that is what the design criteria are. So
okay, so that correspondence is available, right? We can see sort of.
Yep. Yeah. The stormwater report was provided to the town. So that's right in the, probably, I would assume the planning department has one.
Should be on the agenda, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It's also attached directly on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it is directly on the agenda as well. There was a link to it.
Okay. And the Conservation Commission would look at those issues as well or not?
Typically, they do look at stormwater treatment. Yeah, in general. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And hold on.
Hi, this is Randy Coleman on the other end over here. So Asa Pond has historically, in the last 10 years, been getting worse and worse and worse with eutrophication each and every summer. And we're concerned that, at some point, there's going to be no pond left whatsoever. That's clear. And we're not sure what the runoff is, but we're certainly concerned that having this development across the street is going to make the runoff far worse. And at some point, and by the way, the town built a beautiful facility over here to use the pond, and the pond cannot be used for about 5 months of the year. And this development seems as if it's contraindicated in terms of that pond being able to be used by the community as a whole. And if it's going to go up there and going to have any damage, I think that somehow taking that into account and doing something about that's really important for not just the developers, but for the town to speak up about that as well. It's a beautiful resource, but it's horrible in the summer.
Randy, the town does assess that, and Richard, our town engineer, maybe can address your concerns in that area. Richard,
Hi,
you-
this is Rich. I'm the town engineer. We went back and forth a bunch with Eric Prevey on that suggestion of discharging the pipe across the street. I mean, our position really became more of, it seemed beneficial to us to now be treating roadway runoff, whereas presently it's not being treated. Presently, water is discharging directly to the side of the road. Granted, it's the other side of the road. But treating it and then sending it across the street just seemed to be just a better option. Now, it's not proposed to discharge directly into Asa Pond. It discharges ahead of the pond, and it will overland flow through a thickly wooded area before any discharge gets to the pond. So, I mean, we looked at it a bunch, but then we also, realized here that DEM is, and we suggested, Eric and I went back and forth about how it's spread. We thought some sort of level spreader would help to dissipate the flow should it be flowing heavily. We don't want to see any siltation, so we don't want to see any silt flowing toward the pond. But DEM really ultimately has the review of this, and as long as DEM's on board, we thought that equally that it would be a beneficial process for treating stormwater. Right now it goes over to the other side of the road, but it is completely untreated. It's just the way sort of things were. Now we would never do that now, have a discharge like that to the side of the road without treatment, and this kind of takes a bad situation and I believe makes it a little better. And then
so you're getting your twofer with us. Sorry, Rich, but so are you saying that is your thinking that this is going to be a net sort of cleaner for the pond? At the end of the day, it's going to be a better situation.
I mean, can't get much worse than it is, and it feels to me like, in some ways, the town who owns this pond is being negligent for this pond and using it as a dump, essentially.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but what I'm telling you is that presently water is discharging off of that road, Curtis Corner Road, and it's going into the swale along the road, but it's completely untreated.
Mm-hmm.
What this developer is proposing is to take that water. Some of it will continue to infiltrate in those swales, but a portion of it will actually move over to a sand filter. The sand filter is going to treat that water a little differently. It's going to remove, 80% total spent salt, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, 20% nitrogen removal, things like that. There's going to be other materials that are removed with a sand filter rather than just sitting in a swale on the side of the road. So when that water, if that water ever, because frankly, it not a very big portion of water, of volume of water is going to be moving over to the other side of the road. But when it does, it would be cleaner in the end. It would be water that, so the first flush of water is going to get clean. As the rain intensity is higher, that cleaner water will go directly over the pond. It will be cleaner water that way. So that's the thought. I think it is actually a better condition than what's out there.
Well, the whole development itself provides, lots and lots of other, many other ways to pollute that are going to go into the pond, and I don't see how that's helpful at all for the at least for the health of this pond. If that's something that's important for this community. If it's not, for us it is because we happen to live on it. But if it's not important for the community, then you're going to have basically it's going to look like a giant swamp.
It's going to be a marsh.
And that's what the people across the street are going to have too if this isn't done carefully. And it seems to me that the idea that you're going to pipe stuff over here and everything else is happening with that no one's really thinking about what to do about this.
I think if I could clarify real
I
quickly
see our
as well.
legal counsel has his hand raised as well. So go ahead and finish, Eric, and then I'll bring in the legal counsel.
I was just going to add that that is the primary function of the Department of Environmental Management, the state's freshwater wetlands program. That is their primary function. They have an engineer and a biologist who their goal is to review projects and to review stormwater and review any of these any changes to the topography and what, you know, water quality and such. And their primary goal is to protect the freshwater wetland. And that pond is a piece of the freshwater wetland. So during their review, if they felt that this project was going to provide a degradation or any impacts that are going to negatively impact, but not just Asa Pond, also there's a large swamp that's on site as well. There's a large swamp up gradient on this property as well that also goes across stream to Asa Pond as well. So that other pond on the other side, internal to the site as well, provides all the water quality treatments as well. So that is their primary function, is to review these projects. That's all they look at. If they didn't feel comfortable with it and they felt that additional mitigation measures were needed in this instance, that would be part of their review process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we,
Excuse
I'm
me,
sorry.
I'm going to bring in our legal counsel. He's had his hand raised, so I'd like to hear from Peter.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to, I raised my hand a while back when we were addressing the integration of the affordable units issues. So if you want me to hold off on that for now while you finish the discussion on the drainage and the pond, I can. And I'll circle back on that, or if you'd like me to just comment on that now, I can.
Yeah, go ahead and make your comments now.
So my concern with the integration issue, you know, both the placement of the duplexes on the lots and the placement of the affordables in one half the duplex, is that that type of issue is a more of a master plan issue. And in fact, the Fieldstone Farm project, which was appealed to SHAB, where you did place a condition to make the developer not place all the affordables into accessory apartments. Part of the argument that the developer made to SHAB on that appeal was they argued, well, this really should be a preliminary plan issue. And we countered that by saying, no, you were right to address it up front in the master plan. And we haven't had a decision on that yet, but when we argued it before SHAB, SHAB tended to agree with our position on that appeal, which was these issues as far as integration and placement of affordable units in the development is better suited to a master plan decision. So with that, while the discussion was ongoing, I pulled up the minutes from the master plan hearing. And back in January, the January 28th meeting from this year, Mr. Murphy actually raised the same concern. And there was some discussion on that. And it was continued to the February meeting, at which point the minutes reflect that Mr. Kenyon stated on behalf of the applicant that it was their proposal to place all of the LMI into the duplex, one LMI per duplex. And then there was a vote on that. It was approved. There was a finding of integration. And unlike the Fieldstone Farm project, where there was a condition to rearrange it and come back at the preliminary plan stage, or either, or to at least readdress it at the preliminary plan stage, it was just an approval. There were certain conditions, specifically with regard to placement of the duplexes on the lots. And they actually called out where the lots that were going to have the duplexes on. Interestingly, there's the same number of duplexes as the master plan called for. The lots are slightly different. For instance, in the condition of the master plan had the duplexes on lot 5, 6, and 7, as opposed to 4, 5, and 6 where they are now. But the master plan called that out as well. So my concern is that if this was to be appealed to SHAB or challenged at some point, that the developer would have an argument based on administrative finality on those issues. It seems like what happened is it was discussed at the master plan stage. The integration was brought up. There was the counter argument proposed by the developer, and there was approval. So,
Okay. I'm glad you could straighten that out for us. Thank you, Peter. All right, Randy, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought council had something relevant to this, but he had some important information for us as well. So, but again, the applicant is responsible that they cannot make conditions on the site worse than they presently are. So the fact that he has these retention ponds that are going to clean up the water before it's filtrated back into the water system is, it's an improvement.
You're right. I mean, that, I hope that to be the case.
Well, by law, they have to. By DEM standards and by the town standards, they have to meet that. And that's at this stage of the development, this is where they prove that and size those ponds based upon the impervious surface that they've measured within the development and how big those ponds and filters have to be to capture and treat that water.
Got it. Okay, so we'll stop monopolizing. But can you just give us the reference one more time to the DEM correspondence?
If you go on the town website and go to the planning board agendas,
Yeah.
if you click on today's meeting, the agenda, you can click on the site plan, you can click on the sewer feasibility, the drainage. All those documents are on that agenda.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
but just to be clear though, the DEM approval hasn't happened yet. So you're not going to find the DEM approval yet. At some point when it's approved, it'll be available through the DEM website.
So really what I'm really wondering is there still a possibility that we can have some input into DEM's, decision making?
Well, DEM will make the determination on whether it meets their goals.
Right. Okay.
There's no public input on the DEM level. There's it's their staff that takes a look at it. So, and I testified I testified earlier that I did speak to the engineer earlier today, and they said that both the engineer and the biologist had signed off on it and that they were writing up the approval. So.
Okay, that's great.
Thank
you very much.
And Jay, can we bring in Jamie Murdoch, please?
Unmute herself.
Go ahead, Jamie. Please identify yourself.
I am James Murdoch of South Kingstown. I was looking at the Rhode Island housing letter, and it says that all 32 units would have 3 bedrooms. But I thought I heard 2 mentioned during the meeting. So want to understand, is it 2 or 3 bedrooms? End of the first paragraph from Rhode Island Housing, October 21st, 2020.
Yeah, it does state that. Last sentence. All 32 units will have 3 bedrooms. John, somebody want to address that?
I believe that he's correct. The Rhode Island housing letter does talk about 3 units. I think Alex, when he first was looking at this project, he was talking about 3-bedroom units. So we put in the maximum amount there. So I guess there is a possibility that some of them would be 2 bedrooms, some of them would be 3-bedroom.
Okay.
Well,
is that a legal issue, Peter? legal counsel?
So the issue is that the letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing stated that it was.
All 32 units will have 3 bedrooms.
And the applicant is not making all the units have, planning to have that. John, would you be able to get an amended letter of eligibility from Rhode Island Housing on that?
Yeah, I don't think that'd be a problem.
I think that's probably the way
Okay.
to address it.
Right. We'll make sure that we get that in then.
Steve, before we
Anything
do
else?
that,
Run
I
it.
mean, I still would have concern, even if we are locked into the affordable units being one half of the duplex, there's still a requirement that they be of the same size and scale. So
Yeah, I think we have to
if
come
we,
back
if we
to
decide
that.
that the affordable unit's only going to be 2-bedroom and the others are 3, we're not meeting the requirements of the state requirements for the comprehensive permit. And
No,
so before we jump and say, let's allow some 2-bedrooms, I'm not sure that that is the appropriate thing to do.
I agree with you, Joe. I was gonna say it, for the next meeting, we'll have to have the applicant, address some of those issues, and we'll go over what we want from him, before we finish tonight, but obviously that was a major issue, of the boards. And he's clarified that, it was, specifically laid out, but I don't think the size was.
Right.
So. if
I
they-
also, I'm
if
not
they gotta
sure
be
that.
Comparable in size, then. Go ahead,
I'm
Maria.
also, I'm not sure that I agree with Peter's assessment of the situation. I do not recall being at all having approved the, it's a general approval at master plan, and that's why we specifically added condition number 4 relative to the fact that the units shall be integrated throughout the development, shall be compatible in scale and architectural style, et cetera. So I think that that condition still stands, and the issue of equability is not, still has to be met.
You know, and I'm thinking about some of the other comments we've received on other projects from legal counsel relative to master plan. And, you know, we've been given advice that pretty much density is something that has to be determined at master plan, and other things that can be engineered or corrected or changed is done at preliminary. So I understand Peter's argument, but it's not consistent with direction we got from legal counsel on master plan and preliminary plan in the past.
But would your argument be that if they're made bigger, it would meet the requirements? Your argument is the size, Joe?
Well,
If
I probably have several,
bigger.
I probably have several, but if it's determined by legal counsel that we're locked in to allowing them to be just in duplexes, I can go along with that if that's what I'm being told by legal counsel. However, there's still a requirement as far as they be compatible with the size.
In size and
Now,
appearance.
what I had heard in this meeting from Alex was that essentially the duplexes in a single family are going to be the same footprint. What that tells me is that the units are going to be half the size. That's now, I know he told me 1,600 square foot and 900 square foot, but he also said that the units could be interchangeable because the footprint is the same size. That means that the affordable units are half the size of the market rate. That is against the statewide requirements we have for a comprehensive permit.
Yeah, I agree. So that's something he's gonna have to address. at
So
our
as a
next-
minimum, we have to address the size, and the duplexes should be twice the size so that the units are the same size. But I also not necessarily, I guess I still need a little more convincing about that was locked in at master plan.
Yeah, well, Peter, you can prepare a memo for us
Sure.
on that. And
Steve, can I jump in there now? Can you hear me, Steve?
Is that Alex?
Yeah, Steve, maybe I want to correct what he's saying. When I tell you a duplex in a single family house is going to sit on possibly the same size foundation, the duplex is a 2-story unit, side by side, more like a townhouse. The single family is more like a ranch or a raised ranch.
Okay, so so you understand what Joe is saying, that they've got to be compatible in square footage of living space. They can't be half the size.
What's got to be compatible? What exactly?
Your affordable units have to be compatible to the rest of the development. So his argument is that you've got your affordable units are all half the size of the all your single family units.
Well, this is a legal question.
Well, yeah, that's part of Rhode Island housing's the law, that they've got to be compatible.
When
So-
they say
so the-
compatible, do they mean compatible in square footage, or they mean compatible in elevations?
In size and manner.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in for a second?
Sure, go ahead, John.
I think there's 2 issues that we have to resolve, and one of them is, I think it's clear that the duplex units would have to be compatible. They would have to be that you couldn't have the affordable unit be significantly smaller than the market rate unit. So that's clear. The question's going to be, does the duplex unit have to be compatible with the single family? And I agree with Mr. Murphy regarding the bedrooms. I don't think you could have all the affordable duplexes be 2 bedrooms and the market rates be 3, or even the single family be 3 and all the affordables be 2 bedrooms. So I think that is clear. I think what we need to figure out is whether the affordable duplex units have to be the same size as the single family market rate units.
Yeah.
I think that's where the issue is going to be. And if I can just, going back to the master plan hearing, my recollection is that the first hearing, Mr. Murphy brought up pretty much the same issues. And we then went to the Affordable Housing Collaborative and we received their recommendation dated February 14th, 2020, in which they actually stated that they found the project to be an innovative approach. They talked about the fact that there's mortgage finance products for this exact type of structure. And they found that the location of the duplex structures throughout the development is found to be an appropriate method to ensure integration of the units with the proposed subdivision. And I just wanted to point out that we're talking about 24 lots, and a third of them will have duplexes on them. A third of them will have affordable units on them. So it's almost impossible to not have them be next to each other, across the street from each other, because there's more of them, which is a good thing, but it makes it tougher to spread them out when you have more of them. And just one final note, we appreciate Mr. Rabbit's input on the lots on the
Earl.
the left-hand corner. And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought at one point at the pre-app, we actually had the same type of setup with driveways coming in off the main road. The board didn't like that setup, and that's why we went with the entry onto Curtis Corner.
That's correct. Yep. But then the reason it had a shared driveway was because phase one had a similar, that it was still looking to limit the curb cuts,
Yes.
to not have lots of curb cuts on Curtis Corner Road. So it still had a combined driveway. That's why you have the 2 into 1 there. But yes, there was a layout that had all of the driveways coming off of the internal road. And one of the issues with that was also having a driveway with an easement through somebody else's. And there was just issues of being in somebody's backyard or creating a side yard. The idea was that wanted to have it be all the units looked similar from the street. So when you drive down Curtis Corner Road, you kind of see the lots fronting along the street. That was the vision that we were going for. And if, having them have rear alley driveways, it was modified during that discussion of it. So.
And Mr. Chairman, I also just wanted to point out, we still have John Carter with us to go over the landscaping. I just didn't want the board to forget about that.
No, I have him here.
Yeah, I'm not finished.
Well, Susan, did you have a question?
I do. I have a quick question. So we received an email this afternoon that had the building design and elevation on it.
Yes.
Is that something that I could ask questions about, or we could have explained to us? Because Mr. Petrucci just said raised ranches, and that's not what those building designs looked like.
I think they were supposed to supply this elevation for the basic designs. I don't know if they were specific to whether they'd be a raised ranch or, but I think Eric provided those, so he can answer that question.
Actually, Alex had worked directly with his architect for that. I just forwarded them to make sure that we had a visual for tonight. So it's actually, if Alex is still on the call, he might be able to speak to it a little bit better. There was 2 of them. There was a 30-foot wide, and then there was a 40-foot wide as well, as kind of 2 different options in there.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question? You provided are we missing an elevation for the duplex, which was referred to as a 2-story building today?
Yeah, we only had 2 elevations, so.
Is it the intent for the applicant to provide elevations of all the proposed building styles?
I think just to clarify.
Duplex from the single family?
Just to clarify, first of all, Alex can speak to the answer on whether or not the duplex will. My understanding of it was that the visual, we were helping paint the picture of what these were going to look like, so that there could be some, this project isn't within the Route 1 Special Management District where there are architectural, there's no architectural say on them. I think Mr. Petrucci said he was willing to provide, the elevations as a courtesy to say, hey, here's the vision of what I'm thinking for this village, this subdivision. So I'm not sure how, as far as required materials, but at the same point, if the question is whether or not compatibility, then that's a different thing.
I can
Go ahead, Alex.
help you with some of this. There's going to be a few different designs, and obviously, like any other subdivision we do, we offer 3 or 4 or 5 different styles. I gave you just a couple of, just an idea what some of them are going to look like, but it's market driven. I mean, you might get somebody that wants, let's say, a little larger ranch house. So as some of the lots that will be able to receive a larger ranch, I could say to a couple or a single or a double, on lot number so-and-so, we can give you a 1,700 square foot ranch instead of a 1,300. And this is what they're going to cost. There's going to be, we're not locking the subdivision into particular houses and what they're going to look like on every single lot, because I don't have a crystal ball. So again, like I said before, the duplexes will The duplexes will probably be 2 stories because number one, you can't, the lots are not big enough or long enough to make them ranch type duplexes. There is a few lots that's long enough and the building envelope is big enough that I could put a ranch duplex shotgun style. And it'll probably look something similar to the one that's up right now.
James Murdoch.
Yeah.
So
You got interrupted, Jamie. I'm sorry, but
that's okay. So the duplex is same footprint on a small lot, like 8,000 square foot lot, same footprint as the single family homes. So really it's double the density. If it's 3 bedrooms, that's a lot of people on a very small lot. And with the parking, there's really not much yard. And if these are young families with, 2 and 3 bedroom type families, many of which will have more than 2 cars, because I live in Rolling Acres and it's a bunch of ranch houses and there's a lot of people with 3 cars involved in their family. So now if you have a duplex on this and now it's R20, 20,000 square feet, but it's being compacted into 5, 6, 7, 8,000 square foot lots, some of which just have duplexes on them, which have to be tall because the footprint's the same. And so that's not double the density, that's 4 to 5 times the density for the duplex lots. And now these duplexes, because they have to be a townhouse building, they'll stick out. So it's not integrated. It's really like walking up and down the street, you'll have sort of a weird juxtaposition of duplexes and whatever else gets built, and they don't blend in. There's no continuity there. Whereas if the affordable,
Excuse me, are you an architect?
okay, Alex, let him state his opinion.
I've heard enough of this.
There
All right?
are height
First
building
place,
height limits.
that is not what it's going to look like. And please,
All right, Alex, let's tone it down. He's asking a question. He's got the right to ask a question.
It's just ridiculous.
Okay. Let
You
him.
look
Okay.
around. if you
That's,
look around South
Alex,
County,
that's not appropriate to speak
I
about the
develop-
public that way.
I do not build ugly.
Not
stuff.
appropriate.
Okay.
I didn't say you're building ugly houses. I'm saying,
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a suggestion to please have the public address you as the chairman. The conversation should be with the board and not the applicant. The applicant could please respect the public as well as the board members and staff, because when you spoke or your team spoke, no one interrupted you. So with a little bit of courtesy on everyone's behalf, I think the process will function a little bit better.
All right. So Jamie, you're duly noted that you're concerned about the height of the duplexes.
well, yes, it's, double.
I mean, some of those duplexes can be the same height as some of the single family, because we do have building height codes that they can't exceed. So there may be some, like Alex said, there may be some ranches, there may be some 2-story homes, which the 2-story home would have the same building height as a duplex.
Yeah, just by the nature of being a duplex and in the same footprint.
Well, that was part of the way that the town is trying to get some affordable housing. And it was part of the process was making these lots smaller to make them more affordable. And, this was
Right.
kind of a new concept that we tried to tackle affordable housing and get some affordable housing integrated within the town.
Well, and I love the idea of affordable housing, and this is only 25% of this is affordable housing. and the rest of it is getting swept in at a much higher density development because of the way the law is written. I understand that. You know, it's R20 and now it's not even R10 lots. Some of these are 5,000 square feet. So it's very dense. And if there's 3 bedrooms, I mean, that would be 96 bedrooms. If they had 3 bedrooms, that'd be 96 bedrooms in this development. If they're not, you know, it's still a lot of people going in here, and in lots that were R20 lots next to other development that's R20. So if it's, but I understand, you know, the affordable housing. Now, with 96, maybe 100 people moving in, I question whether Suez Water actually has water for them, because we're,
Yeah, they supplied a letter stating they could service it.
they
a lot of
state a
times-
letter.
No, but
They-
when Suez puts in a water ban during the summer, that's for firefighting protection. So they make sure they maintain pressure in all the water lines throughout the town. So in case there's a fire during these, you know, drought conditions, that they have sufficient water pressure in the lines to fight the fire.
Yeah.
And that's why we have the alternate, you know, watering for gardens or whatever during the early summer and sometimes no outside.
But if they can't support a fire, and we have a summer like this one, I mean, it went into odd even and then into an outright ban where, you know, the gardens at my house died. And so continuing to just add and add and add to Suez without Suez enhancing what they can supply affects all of us in town, because water bans, I mean, odd even, okay, that's an inconvenience. A water ban just means my garden dies, and that's what happened. So I, you know, in a general sense, this or all new attachments to Suez Water, and this adds a lot of people. It's not, you know, a commercial building. I want to know that you guys are looking at that topic, because I would say that Suez is out of capacity because I can't use water when I want to. So very tight, a lot of families. Some of these, the driveway in the house is it could be taking up almost 40% of the lot. So there's not much in the way of yards, and there's no common areas for these families to do recreation or anything. There's no connection to parks. It just goes right out on the Curtis Corner Road. So I think this is innovative in that it has really compacted as much as physically as possible, which is marginal. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. It's almost 9 o'clock. We're gonna take a break and then we'll do the landscaping. Randy, I see you have your hand up. If you can be brief, we're gonna take a break at 9 o'clock. Did you have another?
Well, actually, I was going to segue in. I was going to offer you a beautiful segue into the landscaping because
We're
somebody.
gonna have that presentation next.
So let me just put it out there, because Eric had said something about not having the house, the houses, sort of showing the side of the houses on the road. And another concern as a neighbor is the visuals as you drive by. So, you know, I'm hoping that when we get to the landscape piece of it, I'm going to get some reassurance that there's a green buffer.
Yes, Mr. Carter will be up next. We're gonna take a brief break and we'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Carter. Go ahead, John.
Thank you. For the record, my name is John Carter. I'm a registered landscape architect, 960 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett. I think that Eric did a thorough job of explaining the site and the context of the site. And because of the fact that there's a freshwater wetland and a buffer, associated buffer with it on the north side and the west side of the property, it basically dictated the limit of clearing and the fact that all that extensive wooded area is going to remain undisturbed per the DEM requirements. So the areas that we looked at on the east side is heavily wooded. It's owned by the town of South Kingstown. And then there's a house that is on the east side, on the southeast side, which is the only residence at this point, except the new ones that were built recently. This is the older one that abuts the property. So I know that the owner spoke and Alex replied regarding a fence. So what's going on the easterly side of lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is that there's grading proposed. You can see those sort of thin gray lines, and that indicates grading, which when there's grading, there's clearing. So I think that the way we demonstrated it on the plan, on this proposed site plan or landscape plan, is that along that wall, which is going to remain intact, it won't be touched, there's going to be a fence installed adjacent to lot 32. And then there's some existing trees that will be on the project side of the wall, the west side of the wall, that will be left intact. I think that Eric and Alex explained the process of the clearing, the grading, and tree preservation. There's no trees at this point that are specifically identified as unusual or unique, or so I believe that any trees that are left on the site in the backyards, or maybe even in the front yards, will be decided as the project develops and as they begin to do the grading. And at the time they do the clearing and grading, they'll have a better idea of how the houses sit on the lot and where trees can stay. But we addressed it as if it was, at this point, it would be cleared up to the limit of clearing. And I believe that's what Eric also mentioned. We did propose some evergreen plantings adjacent to that house on lot 32. So that would be in addition to the fence. The town ordinance requires the street trees, which we've proposed, and we used red maple, tulip tree, and sweet gum tree, and they're of the size and caliper required by the ordinance. And they'll be planted along the on both sides of the street and around the cul-de-sac. We've proposed some evergreen plantings in front of the 3 houses that front on Curtis Corner Road. I know right before your break, one of the neighbors asked about buffering the houses. The intent of buffering of the plantings there really were to provide screening from the road to those homes. So in other words, it would provide a benefit to the new homes. The area is zoned residential. There's houses on the street up and on both sides, up and down. It is a residential street in this area, and there's no overriding reason to be screening homes. The homes we're not intending to hide them. It is a residential development, and it is compatible with what the rest of the streetscape is. There is some fairly innovative sort of stormwater treatments, and I know there's been extensive discussion about that in regards to how the pre-treatment and then the ultimate crossing underneath the Curtis Corner Road and so forth. So the space between the edge of the pavement and the property line of this project is going to be graded and seeded. And it's going to be these infiltration trenches, if I'm using that word right. Eric Prevey could expound on that. So that prohibits putting any trees out there, any kind of street trees, shade trees, or anything like that. There's no way to plant them. And then there are the 2 stormwater treatment areas. And so we've provided some evergreen shrubs, some inkberry, and some Thuya plicata, the green giant arborvitae, which is one of the few evergreens that the deer, they will eat it, but they're lesser preferred. And at this point, that's sort of where we're at when we're making choices, because I can't think of one that that deer everywhere won't eat. So that's something that we go to. Now, just if people aren't familiar with the plant, I actually did the planting plan for the police station down the street. I don't know, a long time ago, 30 years or something. And those arborvitae that are growing along the side of the road, on the north side of the road, are screening the stormwater treatment at the police station, if you happen to go around them or through them or look on the other side of them. And they are a perfect example of this plant kind of in its glory. They get big, they get thick, they get dense. They seem to be not being bothered by deer. And that's the same kind of plant we would plant along in front of these houses in the areas that we can. And then in the west side of the cul-de-sac, there's a stormwater area there. We've screened it where we can between the homes. It's going to be seeded. It's going to be grass. It's not an unattractive. I think Eric explained the makeup of it. There are a couple of areas that I believe will be stone, these emergency spillways and so forth. And we typically find that if we screen them with inkberry or some other shrub, in this case we use inkberry, they tend to block and kind of soften the impact of the stone. The rest of it is going to abut that big wooded wetland that's not going to be touched. So it's just going to be grass and trees back there. On the north side, there is an area of the 50-foot perimeter wetland, which is the undisturbed buffer of existing trees. The site is primarily deciduous. There's a lot of red maple out there, particularly adjacent to that swamp. And there is some evergreen further back in onto the other site, but those are going to remain in place. There's nothing back there to screen anyways. There's no development, and probably, given the current regulations, won't be any development in the future. And we did propose that we talked to Alex, the developer, about an entrance feature. So we proposed a couple of stone columns. Again, there's not a lot of room out there to build anything because of this stormwater treatment, the way that it's designed. So there would just be a couple of stone columns, and then maybe a couple of little segments of a decorative fence. Might offer an opportunity if they want to put signage on it, or I don't know how they're going to sign this road, if it's going to be a town street sign or if they can put signage on the entrance columns. But and that's pretty much the summary of what we're proposing. It does meet, in my opinion, the ordinance, the town's ordinance, and I think that people that are familiar with Alex and the way that he develops realize that he'll put more in, but more landscaping in than the plan shows as things move along. But at this point, with some of the unknowns, the grading and tree preservation and so forth, we pretty much stuck to the basic concerns, and that's what we proposed. And I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, John. John, what was your opinion on the cul-de-sac and whether that was feasible to attempt to landscape that?
Well, I like more landscaping than less, so my instinct is always yes. I like cul-de-sacs when my kids were young and, you know, they ride their bikes and put basketball hoops up. I'm just going to defer to Eric or Rich or somebody. It's if the traffic safety issues, fire turn radiuses and those types of things work, I think that we could put something in the middle. I've done basic sort of, you can put grass, but it's not going to get cared for and it'll brown out. Sometimes we've just put big evergreen spruce or something in there in a cluster and they grow and fill in and look nice. So I guess the summation of my answer is I think it could be done if the engineering aspects of it could work.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
A couple of comments. I forgot to mention this earlier, Steve, after you spoke. We have had plantings on these cul-de-sacs in all various parts of town for many years. So that's not an unusual thing. And I think it's a good request. It's just got to be the appropriate plantings for one. And I think we need to just be thoughtful about the Thuya and whether or not it would become deer fodder of sorts. That's it for now.
The only thing, Maria, I'm in full agreement with the deer issue. They don't appear to have eaten the ones right down the road. Now, maybe the cops shoot them, I don't know, but I do look at them all the time and marvel at how healthy and big they are. So at least that's something to look at.
Yeah, I've been thinking of some alternatives, and I think of things like American holly, but that's so slow growing, so it might not fit the bill initially, but you know, food for thought.
Yeah, well, I'm open when you come up with some suggestions.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Board members, any other comments?
Yeah, this is Paul Jordan. John, I'm not sure if I understood. Did you say that there were going to be some arborvitae planted, or that you were planting something instead of?
No, I said yes, we're planting arborvitae, but it's a particular variety which is noted and marketed as being deer resistant.
Okay, are these being planted in sort of the usual marching row that, I mean, I'll withhold my opinion on it and just say I hope that the answer is no.
No, they're not. No, they're going to be, if they're planted, they would be staggered and encouraged to sort of grow it into masses. And they get big and they get dense, and they're not a type you'd plant in a row anyways, even if you chose to.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, could I ask a couple questions?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Susan. Thank you for this presentation, but I actually have a question about this. You had stated, Mr. Carter, that buffering wouldn't be necessary because it's a residential area, and these houses look similar to other house lots on the street. If that's what I heard you say. But I think I might challenge you to say there aren't many house lots on the street on 5,000 square foot lots. And these houses are very close together. And lot 24, that house is only 30 feet from the next door neighbor's house, which is not really typical of our town or of this part of town. And I wonder if you might consider adding some sort of shrubbery or trees along those side lots to further buffer these houses, because they are very close together and close to the road and close to the neighbors. So that's my first question. My second question is, if it turns out that this entire lot is leveled, all the trees are cut, then the only trees that we left standing will be the ones that we're planting along your Vespia Way. And at 1.5-inch caliper, you know, I think these sort of wispy trees really, I think it's going to look pretty barren out there. And at least while new homeowners are planting their little wispy trees, it's going to look like an open meadow for years to come. And I'd like you to consider increasing the caliper or the density of those street trees or something so that they're not so forlorn looking out there on the street. And similarly, the shrubs that you have planted at 15 to 18 inches in height will take years to become something to see. So would you consider increasing the size of those shrubs that you're putting in also? And my last question is, on your notes, you say that stone walls will be rebuilt on site. And Mr. Petrucci had indicated that he might use some rocks here and there in people's yards to add a little character, but that's not the same thing as rebuilding stone walls on site. So could you address that? Thank you.
Sure. So in order of your questions, if I got this right, lot 24 that abuts the property to the west of it, I believe that Mr. Petrucci owns that lot to the west of it. So he would own, that would be, the house that it's abutting would be his own house. We could try to plant over there. So when we're given a plan by an engineer that shows drainage and it shows grading, that dictates the limit of clearing, that dictates where we can and can't do planting and so forth. And on that lot 24, between lot 24 and the property next door to it, there's only about 10 feet. So I don't know that I can plant in that space. But to my comment of the houses, it being the compatibility, I said, and I don't know that there aren't 5,000 square foot lots. I don't know that. I don't know that there are. I think that the size and scale of the homes look like some that are similar, even the ones that are on this plan in front of us, the footprints. But the fact that it's a residential zone, there's residential homes, it doesn't immediately drive a need to buffer. Typically, buffering is between incompatible uses, which is usually a residential area and some other type of institutional or commercial area. And that's all I meant was that in response to the question about buffering them from Curtis Corner Road, I don't see that there's anything that's dictating that has to be done. We are proposing some buffering, but that's to both people's benefit, but primarily to provide some landscaping between the new homes and the traffic on the road. The tree size, the shrub size, that meets the town's requirement. I will review that with the applicant, with the owner, and your concern, and if he wants to, if he's willing to, then we can upsize some of them. There is one advantage to the tree sizes being smaller, which is they tend to transplant better and adapt better and survive better. And bigger trees, the bigger they are, the more susceptible they are to transplant shock and so forth. I see street trees all over South Kingstown, Narragansett, North Kingstown, all the places that I work. I look at them. I look at them in 5 years. I can go back to 10 and 15 and 20 years in places. You know, I'm trying to understand what makes them thrive. And sometimes you go look 10 years later, they don't look like they've grown at all, and they haven't even given us the benefit of dying. They're just kind of hanging on and hanging on. I really think that has to do with the initial couple of how it's planted, number one, and if people adhere to the planting details and specifications we provide, and that can be supervised. And that means adding soil and that type of thing. And then whether water's provided in the first couple of years. And then they will grow and they will prosper and they'll be healthy. Other than that, whether they're bigger or smaller, they're still gonna struggle. And your comment on the stone walls, I'd have to look at my note. I know that we talked about it. I know Alex said that he was not going to take the walls off, excuse me, take the stones off the site. I know there's a concern about people dismantling stone walls and taking them other places and rebuilding them. And I believe his intent is to leave all the stones on the property. I don't think there's already a stone wall on the easterly property line. I know he'll do some decorative things with them. But I can change that verbiage because I did not mean to suggest he was going to use all the stones and put back stone walls on the property lines.
On your second page of this landscape design, one of your notes says that the stone walls will be rebuilt on site. And that's why I asked about that.
No, I understand it.
And I might misunderstand, but I think the spirit of the stone walls is that not that rocks not be taken off site, but that the stone walls not be dismantled and disposed of, even if they're just scattered around. That would be very nice if somewhere a stone wall was rebuilt on this property that sort of fit into the landscape of the property. You know what I'm saying?
I know just what you're saying. I can ask him again. It's not my choice to make, but I can ask him.
I remembered he said something about doing a stone treatment at the entrance with some of the stone wall rock, but.
Right, we've done that on other projects. We did one on North Road, and he did something like that. And I think that was an intent, and he may use them other places. I can ask him, Susan. I don't, at this point, his plan is not to rebuild stone walls because typically they're on property lines, and I don't really see any property lines here that would lend themselves to having stone walls that don't already have them.
I'd like to agree with Susan that, and we have very often required that an applicant reuses the stones on site. And as you referred to, John, Mr. Petrucci has utilized stone walls, particularly on the North Road project. And I think he does understand the value of that kind of treatment and the look and the feel. But to Susan's comments, the fact that this is such a dense project and the fact that it has drainage issues, thus the need for the trenches and the stones, which then it's about cause and effect. It then limits what you're able to do as far as in certain areas landscaping. So I think that having a look at that and figuring out places where some buffered areas can be put in would be beneficial. And we don't only require or ask for buffers when it's a transitional zone, say from residential to, as you said, institutional or commercial, but we do require buffers often, particularly in some of the more dense residential projects. And that would be, I think, very appropriate here because the area is essentially going to be clear cut.
Could I speak again? Sorry. So I guess before I mute myself again, in my looking at the plans where there's just house, house, house going up Curtis Corner Road, and I realize this question is not for the landscape architect, but more back for the engineers. What if the house on lot 24 was simply pushed to the back or halfway back to the top of that lot with a longer drive, like a bigger front yard, a smaller backyard, and then would break up that row of houses up Curtis Corner Road?
Susan,
And I
I
wonder
was
if that,
thinking maybe doing that because of the turnaround issue.
okay,
So he talked about pushing that house back so he can make the, because Jamie brought up about the houses, cars backing out into Curtis Corner Road.
okay,
There was some discussion about moving lot 24 house unit closer to the rear
okay,
of that lot.
thanks.
Any other board members or staff have a question?
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask a question,
Who's speaking, please? Oh,
that's Rich Burbank.
go ahead.
Rich Burbank, Town Engineer. And it's really a question, I think, maybe to Jamie and Peter, but you know, this application came in Early on, they requested a 40-foot right of way. In fact, that's even one of the waivers, I believe, that is being requested in some fashion. But the trees in this case are going to end up on private property. Now, is there a way that in the future, and I'm really kind of thinking about at building permit time when we're out there and we're trying to make sure that each lot is conforming to whatever site plan they've come up with. And, you know, usually we check for things like the DEM markers and all those types of things when the roadway is being developed and when the land is being cleared. But how do we, you know, assure that, are we able to assure that these trees are being planted the way they're shown on this plan? And is this plan, in a sense, sort of a part of the record, and we are going to be able to require that these homeowners later on keep these trees, you know, and maintain a canopy cover in effect?
So Rich, what you would want is that a condition that the street trees be planted on private property. So the town doesn't maintain them.
They are being proposed on private property because the roadway, again, is the right of way is very narrow here. So if you look at the sidewalk, it's pushed to the edge of the property line. The trees are on the other side of the sidewalk. So they are on private property.
But if we make it the condition of approval, your concerns will be met, because if they ended up planting it on town property, in theory, you could tell them they have to move it.
But how do we ensure that they're maintained and they're not cut down?
I think,
yeah, I mean, I like to think that, you know, early on, I think that later on, I don't think you have to worry about it as much. I think people generally, if they have a tree in their yard and it's looking good and everything's growing well, generally they'll keep it. I mean, most people do, not all, but most. But I just want to be assured we get to that point. So I want to be able to say, when these individual lots are being developed, you need a couple trees here. That's what was approved.
Mr. Chairman?
If I'm not mistaken, isn't it the town's policy now? They don't really want trees planted in the town right of way?
Well, no, but I want to be able to, right, you're right. And it's not our policy, but it is our preference, because we're just not able to maintain all these trees that are in the right of way. And even taking them down when they're diseased is very, very difficult for us with our budget. And what I'm trying to say is that when it is planted on a private property, which is fine and even preferable, do we have a mechanism by which we can assure that it stays in place?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think I can answer that. I think the way you could do it is to make it a condition of approval that when the plat gets recorded and deeds get sold, there's a restrictive covenant covering all the lots in the plat, that all of the trees, the street trees shown depicted on private property, they're required to maintain that. And you could put a condition in that covenant that if they don't maintain it, the town could have the right to go in, perform some type of maintenance work, and then put a lien on the property for the work done. I think that would probably be the best way to handle it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Could I just speak to that too? Because we've had experience with this in the past. I think what you have going for you, Rich, here is that because there's a property owners association, you could do some sort of broad, covenant that requires that they stay there. And at the time of installation and building permit, typically on site plan approval, a lot of communities, South Kingstown included, requires that somebody, either the designer or some other appropriate professional, provide documentation that it was done per plan. And at least that guarantees you that they're there and they're in and they're put in properly.
Well, the per plan requirement really ends when the road's done. So when these lots are individually developed, we will be looking at them individually. And the trees may or may not be there as part of the roadway work. And another thing that happens is that the driveways, like these driveways are all shown and they're very schematic. Of course, Eric has to do a drainage analysis based on most probable layouts. Buildings change, driveway changes. I mean, these driveways aren't going to be paved as they're shown right up to the house. That doesn't make any sense. So where the driveway shifts around left or right, one of these trees may shift around left or right. I just want to be able to say and look back at this plan and say, okay, well, lot 11 had one tree somewhere between the two property lines, and then they had one on either end. And I just want to be able to maintain that, because that, it's going to be our office that is the one that enforces that later on. So if what Peter's saying, I think, and even what you're saying, John, is correct. You know, it could be in the homeowners agreements, and that way the homeowners know. But I also would like to see something that says that, you know, something that's recorded that says that, you know, it's per this plan. This is the plan we're going to follow. We can move trees around a little bit, but effectively the number of trees really should remain as it's shown here, or how it's approved, how it's ultimately approved.
This is Paul Jordan. I'm
makes
just
sense?
thinking, I kind of like the option that Peter presented. I'm always concerned about who's enforcing homeowner association covenants. I mean, I understand with the drainage that the DEM has a role in making sure that those function properly, but if the homeowners association ignores the fact that people are cutting down trees, who's addressing that? I think having something that says the town can step in if you don't maintain the tree just seems a better plan to me.
Yeah, I think it's both. It starts with the homeowners association and then the town reserves the right, if they're ignored or abused, whatever. They can come in, do the work, and then charge the association.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, I think you're absolutely right that it is difficult sometimes to keep track of what homeowners associations might be doing, especially with their open space and whatnot. But so you're right. I think that, and what Steve says, I think helps as well. Is it's really both. It's like a two-prong approach. So what's nice about the homeowners agreements, though, is that it's more likely that the homeowner will read those than find some dug-in clause somewhere. I think. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think that people understand those homeowners agreements often pretty well.
Okay.
So
Any
thank
other
you.
questions from staff or members, board members, before we go to the audience?
Yeah, just a point here. I would agree with what Susan and Maria spoke about with the density and the size of some of the plantings. And just to note that if there's going to be any potential changes to reducing the curb cuts, there might be an opportunity to increase some of the plantings as well.
Okay. All right. Jay, can we bring in on the attendees, RJQ has his hand raised or her hand raised?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you state your name, please, and address?
Yes, Paul Perone, 99 Curtis Corner Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification to Mr. Carter. I am the homeowner to the west of lot 24, which is 99 Curtis Corner Road. I don't believe that's appropriately reflected in the drawing.
Yes, and I apologize. I was told that was the plan that I was given.
Right, no issue.
Okay, but I was told that somebody texted me and told me that after I said it, so.
Gotcha, thank you. I guess the only concern that I have is if, I know someone else had mentioned buffering. So obviously construction, noise abatement, et cetera. Is there any type of buffering, whether it's fencing, whether it's vegetation, that that could be installed prior to that between my home and lot 24, however it's designed or configured?
Think it's reasonable to ask for some, I think the best thing, given the size and the space we have to work in, would be a fence, and I can run that by the owner, and I'm pretty sure he would be agreeable to that.
That's all I ask. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any other questions of the landscape architect? Okay. I I guess we're all set with you, John, and
Thank you.
I don't know how the board, was there a consensus on the board on what they wanted to do with the cul-de-sac? They happy with it as is, or would they like to see some landscaping within it?
I would say yes, if it's possible. It sounds like it may be difficult. If there's something that could be done there, I would say absolutely.
Okay. Maria, Susan, you okay with? Okay.
Yes.
All right, John, I
Yes.
guess we'll ask you to see if you can come up with a concept for that cul-de-sac.
I will talk to Eric and we'll get together and hopefully come up with something that is satisfactory.
Yeah, just to break it up a little.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, John Kenyon, you, did you have somebody for traffic? Did you want to present that, or?
Mr. Chairman, if you remember, we presented our traffic study and traffic engineer master plan.
Yep, my apologies. We had the new copy, so that's, I saw it there. Did you have anybody else to present?
No, we don't.
Okay. Any other questions from board?
I just wanted to mention, once again, board members have heard me say this in the past, that I don't feel that given this particular area and its relative location to the university, I don't feel that the traffic studies that have been generated overall in this area actually don't necessarily represent the impact and the influence of particularly Route 108. It doesn't capture the impact. Looking at the traditional ITE book in order to determine what they call the peak hour, I don't think is helpful in relation to the traffic that occurs, students on the way to class up until 11 a.m. and then at 4 in the afternoon. So I want to make sure that that's noted for the record.
Staff have any comments on that issue? Rich?
Well, the existing traffic volume, I thought were counts. I thought they counted vehicles, and they ended up with west of 108 on Curtis Corner, it was over 4,000 cars a day, 500 in the peak hour. I'm trying to look at it now, but if I remember correctly, that's what the numbers were. So I thought the numbers were fairly solid. I mean, you use ITE when you are developing your proposed numbers and or proposal, related to what you're proposing. In this case, they were generating in that peak hour, which they estimated between, I thought it was 7 and 8 in the morning, and in the afternoon, I thought it was.
They had a 2 to 3, I think.
It was a 2 to 3 afternoon because of the school. So
Richard, are those counts done during the URI school year?
I got to. I don't know.
I mean, I think if they were, August or June versus October.
Yeah, I don't know. I could look at it a little further. I'm sorry I don't have that on hand. But what I wanted to point out was that, the 16 that they're proposing during the peak hour, I thought was about right for a development this size. And the 21 in the afternoon peak hour, I thought was even a little high, frankly. That's total combined in entering and exiting. But as far as when those numbers were generated, I'm sorry I don't have it on hand. It'd really be for the traffic engineer to maybe to defend, I suppose. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have it on hand.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just quickly went through and I believe it looks like the counts were November 2019.
Yeah.
The report was submitted
It's-
right after that.
That's what I'm reading as well.
All right.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for clarifying it.
So it was 11:15 to 11:22.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was pre-COVID, so, well, it makes a big
That
difference.
makes a difference.
It makes a big
Oh, yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
You know, we had that issue on Middlebridge Road. It was, post-COVID was not the same.
Right.
So, I mean, I thought the numbers were counted numbers. I just want to clarify that. It wasn't that the existing numbers were generated from an ITE estimate or anything like that.
The other thing I just wanted to add real briefly as well is I know there was discussion at one of the TRC meetings about whether or not it accounted for the middle school being potentially converted to high school. And it was. It states it very right in the traffic report as well, that did account for the potential for additional traffic onto Curtis Corner Road if it were a high school instead of a middle school, because that would generate additional traffic as well.
All right, thank you, Art. Jay, we have a attendee, Sean, that has his hand raised. Sean, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is Sean Diabler. I live at 71 Jennifer Drive. I had a question about the traffic study. My mother-in-law actually lives at 16 Curtis Corner Road, which is at the intersection. So the traffic impact study does not include the two new developments that are being developed to the west of Curtis Corner Road and South Roads. Also, the report does not mention any traffic impact at this traffic signal light at Curtis Corner and Kingstown Road. I've been over there various times trying to back out of there, and it's quite congested. Also, I've seen the traffic's backed up for more than one light cycle. And the other issue that I've noticed over there is that the town ambulances, as they exit the public safety complex, are trying to get through that light at times. And the added traffic from not only the high school, but, you know, additional developments is might cause a problem.
Okay.
My one other thing I noticed is the Rhode Island housing letter of eligibility is based on affordable rental units they talk about, but the Narragansett Affordable Housing Corporations is talking about qualifying potential buyers.
Okay. We
That's
have,
all I have.
we are going to have legal counsel prepare a memo for us in regards to some of the questions that we discussed tonight about the affordable housing issue. So there's some research he's going to do on that. Any other concerns?
No, it was just about the traffic at the light mainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So what do we want to see at the next meeting from the applicant? Peter's going to prepare a memo regarding the affordable housing issue. So we can, we'll discuss that more. The applicant's going to adjust the lots 24 and 23 so they don't back up onto Curtis Corner Road. John Carter's going to do design something if it's possible for the cul-de-sac. Any other outstanding issues?
Can we ask that the traffic engineer take a look at that traffic light and the effect of that traffic light?
Okay.
I do believe that, I don't believe that the report discusses the, what happens at that traffic light. And just have them do a little bit of look at it anyway.
Okay.
One of the
Yes, sir.
neighbor to the west asked about the potential for some buffering for construction.
John said he was going to speak to Alex about a fence. And Paul was pleased with that or happy with that. Anything else? All right, when do we want to reschedule this for the next hearing, Jay? You think we can put this on a regular night, or we should keep it on a special night?
That's up to you. I'm not sure what the January regular session meeting is going to look like. It's a tough call.
Would this be the first item on the agenda?
It's a public hearing, so yeah, in order on the agenda, public hearings go first.
What's the board's opinion on that? You want to put it at the regular January meeting, or do you want to keep it at a special night? Maria?
I think we should keep it at a special night for
That's
now. I
fine.
mean,
I
I think this is a complicated project. I think that we are, we have a real balancing act here, the need for affordable housing, but the site, the constraints, the traffic, the water table. I think there are a lot of issues going on. We are obviously constrained by the regulations in the Low Mod Housing Act relative to comprehensive permits. But I think going forward, we want to make sure that this is not a bad example, that this is not about how not to do affordable housing. We're still going to be only getting 25% versus a 75%. I think this just needs a real thorough, continued thorough review.
Okay.
And I know that we have until March.
I have no problems with another special meeting. I just wanted the board's opinion that if they're concerned about too many meetings, and they have some input in it, but that's fine. I think we would
I
have
agree.
a lengthy discussion on the affordable housing issue, so it's just as well it goes on a special night.
I agree with Maria, and as a comprehensive permit, we sit in not only as the planning board but also as the zoning board. So we do need to provide all that balance on that zoning relief and the affordable housing issues.
John, also too, there was discussion on combining the driveways on some of the duplexes that we had talked about. So,
Steve,
staff have anything to add?
oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask, it was brought up earlier about the Conservation Commission.
That's what I was going to say.
But I don't want to
We'll
come back and then get asked to go to them. So
when do they meet again?
Yeah, when did they meet again?
well, me and Jay were actually just with them earlier tonight.
Okay.
So
You happen to mention this to them.
Yeah.
so I don't know, Jay, when's their next meeting?
They meet again on January 5th.
January 5th. So that'd be the same. That's a Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
Why are they on Tuesdays now? Didn't they used to be a different day?
No, they've always been on Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of the month.
Thursdays.
Hmm.
So, so that means they, more than likely, we'd be holding a meeting the same night. Did they meet earlier tonight, Jay? Is that where you were? Okay.
Yes.
Steve, is that January 5th meeting a regular meeting?
No.
No, it should be a work session,
Our
right?
regular meeting is the end of the fourth Tuesday. The second Tuesday is usually a work session. So I would suggest we probably go to the first Tuesday of the month, which I believe is January 5th.
You are correct, Mr. Chairman.
That is the Conservation Commission's meeting. It may be tough to get that. I think they may have difficulty starting earlier than 6 o'clock. And I know for a fact that there's one other special use permit advisory application on that evening for the Conservation Commission. It's up to the board, but the special meeting does not have to occur on a Tuesday if you wanted to stagger it and make it a different night.
Well, is
Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday of that week available?
Thursday, the 7th is open, Mr. Chairman. We just, Mr. Wagner would be with EDC that evening.
And it wouldn't provide a whole lot of time for staff to draft an advisory from Concom We can do that the following day, but you guys would only have about a day to review it, and I would only be able to get it to you electronically in time.
Well, do we have a work session? Anything planned for our work session?
Work session is on the 12th, and there are some standing items on that agenda.
Perhaps we can push it out to the week after the work session then.
Or the 14th, that Thursday.
The decision deadline on this project is March 9th.
March, right.
I think that if we could, and if Jay could get us the memo from the Conservation Commission on the 6th, or even on the 6th, is that what you're saying, Jay, the next day?
I would put it together on the 6th and try to get it out to your emails by the end of that day at the latest.
I think that
Chairman, it may be appropriate to hold a meeting on the 14th. It'd be 2 meetings that week, but that would give Jay and the applicant both a little more time between meetings. Because again, Mr. Kenyon is also preparing after a Conservation Commission meeting to be before you as a planning board, in a tight time frame also. So the 14th would give everybody a little bit of breathing room.
That's a Thursday?
That's a Thursday evening.
Okay. Board members, okay with that? We'll have
Fine
a
with me.
work session on the 12th.
Yep.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to continue the public hearing until January 14th at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Motion by Maria. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Pam. I'll take a hands up for yay. Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. We'll move public hearing to January 14th at 7 p.m.
Can I ask one more question?
Yep.
I'm wondering if, and maybe I'll ask Joe and Jamie on this, about the Affordable Housing Collaborative. If there's a reason for us to either for Joe to talk with them again or to have them at our meeting, because we'll be discussing affordable housing. I don't know if that would be of assistance to hear their perspectives.
Joe, when's the next meeting? You're muted. You have to unmute yourself, Joe.
The next meeting of the Affordable Housing Collaborative is December 10th.
Okay, so you could get some input from them.
December 10th. I mean, the agendas haven't gone out. I could put it on the agenda.
Well, let me ask this question also. Peter, when do you think that you'll have the memo on affordable housing? I'm just wondering if that would be of use to them before they review.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it would be useful to have them take a look at that, just because the timeline I referenced was just from looking at the minutes, and I know that John Kenyon mentioned that their decision making or their opinion letter being a key factor for the planning board and the master plan level. So I think having that memo so they can either affirm or deny the timeline could be useful. So I think I could get that to them in advance of December 10th.
Yeah, and you said that that letter from the affordable housing was written in January or February last year?
Steve, I believe it's dated February 14th, 2020.
I can dig those materials out and provide them to the commission for the meeting on the 10th.
Okay.
I'm going to have to go back and familiarize myself with that stuff because that predates my tenure with the
Yeah, I
town.
just, don't want them to put themselves in a conflict either. Having made a statement. I mean, if they want to clean it up a little, but
well, I think
obviously at master plan, that's what they said. So, but
yeah.
I'd like to refresh my mind and what was said in that letter.
Yeah, I don't think the purpose of sending it back would be to give them an opportunity to change what they said. just to clarify the issue that we're considering now.
Yeah.
And to help advise on where to go.
Yeah, but in particular, Peter, can you try to give us some clarification on the affordable housing units, the compatibility to the rest of the development as far as size and scale, and whether it pertains to all the homes within the development, or how that fits in, and just to help us make that decision?
Yeah, I could include that. That would be the issue of whether or not.
I mean, that was what Joe was bringing up, and what he's always consistently brought that issue up, that for size and scale. I mean, if it was a development, we had that with North Woods. If you're building 4-bedroom houses, the LMI can't be 2 bedrooms, more or less, or all of them can't be. So just to make sure we cover all our bases and have all the information.
I can address that issue, and I'll try to share it with the board and the applicant well in advance of the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Staff have any comments before we adjourn? I'll entertain them.
Legal counsel and the town engineer on some of the outstanding issues, as well as the applicant.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for
Motion to adjourn.
adjourn. Yeah, I couldn't come up with that. And a second from Paul.
Second.
All those in favor, raise their hand. All right, it's unanimous. We'll see you on, we'll see you next Tuesday. So tune in.
But to clarify for the other audience, it is January 14th at 7.
Yep. And next week is Matunic Beach Condo on Tuesday. So, all right. Night all.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Night.